Again, sort of teaching myself everything along the way. One of the things I felt like I was good at was picking out the right person for the job. I thought I had the intuition, and when someone came along, when this one employee came along, I was like, you know what, you're the right person. And I didn't do due diligence. I didn't spend my time, trying to find the right person. I was just like, yeah, let's fit you in there. Unfortunately, it didn't work out too well. This person ended up, dragging my business down like an anchor. And and I just I really did hire out of convenience, like I was saying, and just wasted countless hours trying to spend on them. So fast forward, dealing with coaches, dealing with spending money on programs, all this other stuff. I put these strategies together in a way that I feel like systematic, and I've tested them over the years, and really just going to dive into it now because I want to make sure we get to the beef of it. Another quick takeaway from Jim Collins that I love is the whole bus thing, right? The right people on the bus. And he says you're the bus driver. And so it makes more sense to have the right people on the right seats, so you're not stopping and going as you're trying to reach your destination, if you're using this bus analogy, rather than if you don't have the right people, you got to let them on and off as you go. You're not sure what seats they are. They may be arguing amongst themselves. So I really like that analogy. So what we want to do is figure out how not to do that, how to get the right people in the right seats. And I believe that's by really getting good at these 4 pillars, hiring, onboarding, management, and development. So jumping right into the handout you got there. First one is hiring. And the core thing that I feel like needs to be in place before you even think about hiring somebody is your vision, your positioning, and your core values. What we're looking for is to create a team of the best people, a team of A players, not just the person who's more convenient, the person who can do the job, and hopefully they'll develop into something. You always want to start out with the best, but in order to attract the best, you have to have a good vision, and not all business owners have that vision. But if you can define your vision, what we do is we work with these companies, we define the vision, where you're headed over the next 5 years, describe it visually, tangibly, and this is something that's going to work for you later as you hire more people, and to clearly position your company in the market as well. Have more focus in the market, and there's a few questions that we put together. What is your specific market you serve? What is the specific service or product that helps that market? How do you deliver the service or product, and what makes this unique from your competitors? When you start to identify these things, you get a clear picture of what you're doing. You're not all over the place, and when you hire employees, you're much more succinct, and they know exactly what you're trying to accomplish between the vision and your positioning. Now, the core values is key to building the culture of your business. It's key to building a tribe of people that are all, rowing in the same way, rowing the boat in the same direction at the same time, because we're all, similar. We all share the same values. So having these defined up front. What I always say is, values kind of over the years, were developed in a way, maybe back in the 80s, 70s, whenever they started doing it in the corporate world. It's like, all right, we got to have these set of values. We got to be honest, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, right? But then they get shoved in the back of the handbook, and no one really pays much attention after that. So we really try to bring those to the surface. We really define who the owner, what are the values of the owner, and really try to define those in a way and that where they're living their day-to-day life, and they're going to showcase those to their employees. And when you're hiring somebody, you need to look for those same qualities. You need to actually use those to evaluate the person to make sure they're meeting and they're going to be a good fit. Because otherwise, if you don't, what happens is they get into place, things don't work out the way you'd hoped, and you just end up clashing. So we do things like list them on the website, you know, communicate them in succinct ways, like even doing posters, you know, making sure that you're talking about them in your meetings. And one of the values that I encourage people to always use is A2FSO. I don't know if anyone knows what that stands for off the hand, but it's able to figure shit out. That's the biggest value that I think people need to really have in place, especially if you're trying to create a team of A players. So as you define that, you know, the next place is obviously you put the job posting together based on some of that information, what you're looking for. And you really need to go on a hiring. You need to look at it more like a hiring marketing blitz, right? So you're trying to, you know, most people just put the job posting out there, but you're really trying to attract the best person. You really want to sell that person. You know, you're trying to get, you know, the best person may not be looking for a job right now. The best person in reality may be at another job. So you want to, you know, woo them away and get them to work for you. And so creating this marketing blitz means, you know, do things like have a landing page, you know, on your website. I've seen people even do like where there's scarcity. You know, you've seen those countdown clocks. Like this position's only available for the next, you know, 7 days or something. You know, use advertising in addition to your job posting. Make your job posting sound sexy. And yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Make it a sales pitch. Everything you can do to make those A players come to work for you. So as you're, you know, evaluating people and you found several candidates that you think are the right fit, who have the right values, you don't always know. I mean, resumes can be, you know, I know you all. When I've done my resume, I've always made it sound the best that I could possibly make it sound. You know, try not to like embellish too much, but you know, you're trying to sell yourself. But in reality, you don't know for sure if that person's going to be able to do the job. So I recommend doing what we call them hiring hoops to jump through, right? So create steps for each candidate to work through in order to get hired. Try to find additional examples of results from their past work, and have them perform sample tasks. You know, easy things, simple things, but you want to see how they do in the real world. One of my favorite things that I've heard is when you're hiring a salesperson, tell them they aren't a good fit, and watch them, see if they'll work their way back to trying to get into conversation. If they do, then you know they're probably a good fit for a sales position because they're trying to, you know, sell you on why they're a good fit. They just walk away and say, okay, well, maybe it was for the best. So as you're talking to candidates too, and you're walking them through these steps, so you can see what their work looks like, so they can prove a resume to you. You also want to know what their vision is. You not only want to sell them on your vision, but you want to hear from them their vision and how it relates to your vision. They call it the vision crossover. Because if you can understand that, then you can, you know, you start to understand if they're a good fit. Any questions so far? I mean, I don't want to keep going on and I want to keep this informal. If you have any thoughts, comments, stories.
So yeah, while you were talking about like getting the team members and things like those, right now what I end up running into is finding actually any candidates who are qualified. And
finding any at all.
Very few which are qualified, right? So that's the thing which I tend to struggle with. So what ends up happening is that I have to remain several subpar employees, and we are trying to get. I mean, you know, my competition is generally with San Francisco, right? So that's the type of people I'm looking for, and they are not. So the people I get are almost impossible. So, but I don't see like everybody talks about create this little team or whatever, but nobody ends up talking about things like, okay, you have a B team. How to take the D team and convert it into an A team.
Yeah.
And that is missing 99% of, you know, Jim Collins' books I read, and
right.
Nobody talks about, but that's what you got. So how do you make it work?
Right. I talk a little bit about that later on, but what I find is it's finding the right person rather than the right qualified person, if that makes sense. Like, if there's places where you can teach them and develop them, you know, having the right person always good. And I don't know your business in and out, but sometimes that happens like with a younger person. I know in my business, you know, I hired a graphic designer, but she was the exact right person that I needed, and she, within like a year's time, she self-taught herself everything that I needed for her to like grow into like a digital marketer, and it was quite amazing because like she just had it, right? I just knew from the beginning like she had it, and it may not always work out, you know, in that way, but I at least find that having the right person first, and then then having the qualifications. Sometimes the qualifications can always be taught.
The interesting thing that you say is, prior to me joining Cohen, I used to own and operate a boutique staffing firm. So that was part of talent management, is realizing that we have the lowest unemployment we've had in many, many years. And you do sometimes have to settle or go with a key position vacant for a long period of time. And that has counterproductive issues. But you're right, from a standpoint of recognizing the aptitudes and abilities that someone has versus the hit the ground running skills. But sometimes you don't have time to get them ramped up in order to be a productive contributor. But it is
I think his point though too is, you're talking about staffing, you're talking about leadership.
Yeah.
How do you communicate as a leader so that you are transforming that person's vision to match the ideals of work?
And that's more training and development. Yeah.
Right, and I guess that's what I was getting at, is finding a leader, right? Hiring a leader from the get-go, even if they may not have that experience, you can identify that it's somebody that you can put into a succession plan and work their way up. But also keeping open job postings, keeping resumes constantly coming in, just say we're always hiring, always looking for resumes. That's an easy way, or you can be more specific with it and just keep that job posting out there and just keep pulling stuff in, and eventually somebody will find it. I find, getting on as many different platforms as I can. I've been lucky with LinkedIn. I've, most recently, the example I was going to use is a company I'm working with right now. It's 1042 Tactical. They sell law enforcement equipment and uniforms. They do outside sales. They're not just a store. And he managed to grow his business to about mid six figures, but without, with a lot of stress along the way. And the example here is about the values and vision. So he didn't really have any. He did, but he didn't have them defined. He didn't really understand them. And as soon as we pulled that out and we used that with hiring, what we found was very quickly putting that into our job posting, we found within like 2 or 3 weeks time, we found a couple individuals who were remote. We didn't really plan on being too remote, but we made it work out. And the first thing that they said when we talked to them, they saw our vision and they were super excited to work with us. They had the exact right background we were looking for, and it was just, kind of amazing. And now we're kind of working on the onboarding part of it, which is what I'm leading into next. And onboarding obviously is not tremendously complicated, but I, when possible, I like to, recommend a trial period, sort of that next step of hiring hoops. What's the trial period look like? Is it 30 days, 45 days? What do they have to do? What metrics? Set the metrics in place so they have to perform, and then doing a real performance evaluation in that time. And at the end of this, I always use, there's a couple bullets in here. 3 tests at the end of the trial period. Would you have a beer with them? Do they make your life better? And would you enthusiastically rehire this person? Right? So just real sort of anecdotal ways of understanding if this is the right fit. Another breakdown I see in onboarding is that you may have an HR onboarding checklist. We got to get them email, we got to get their benefits set up, we got to do all these things. But when I went to work for the company that acquired my business, they had all that. It was great. But it took me a better part of a year to really understand my position and all the ins and outs and systems, or even lack thereof, of how to, do my job in the best way. So that onboarding checklist is critical, and really taking the time to put in everything that they possibly need to know. And it's something that, well, once it's done, obviously you don't have to redo it each time. And it can be complicated, it can be basic, but the idea is creating a checklist that gets them ROI positive in about 2 to 3 weeks. What can you do to make sure that they have everything that they need, that they can possibly do their job in the best way and the fastest way possible. The job that I was in, it took me, like I said, 6 months, 8 months before I was really like hitting the ground running, like, all right, now I'm good. I now understand everything about this business. So management, key to management from my perspective is communication. A lot of communication, but there's a lot of other elements that go into it as well. Like we were talking about, you want to be a leader. One of the books I read recently, Lee Cockrell from Disney, COO of Disney for however many, probably 30 years. He says, be a leader, not a boss. Be humble. Don't be a dictator. A players want somebody with vision. They want someone to lead them, not someone to tell them what to do. Time management is critical. Not only time management for yourself as an owner, but time management for your managers. We've got a specific system in place for that. We call it the XDS, or Eliminate, Delegate, Systematize. And we categorize, so basically you're tracking your time, you do an evaluation of your time, you categorize your time into 4 areas: admin, technician, manager, and executive. And then you figure out which one of these can I eliminate, which one should be delegated, which ones should be systematized. And we find that, in most cases, everyone's trying to do everything themselves and not trying to delegate or systematize too often, especially in smaller businesses. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, talk a little bit about salary cap, but the main idea there is, through management, is understanding where that threshold is, where you should be hiring, right? Where, what is that financial, that money mark look like where, okay, now we've hit that threshold, now we need to hire. So it's important to understand that. You can read through that on your own. Or if you have questions, talk to me afterwards. Another key part of management is the role chart. People call it org charts. I like to call it the role chart. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. And having that is critical to not only understand where you want to be in the future, how you want to grow your employee set, what does your future role chart look like, but it's also important for your employees to understand, okay, what's the pecking order, where do I fit in all of this, and how do we move forward? How are we moving forward?
Hey, Geoff, let me stop you there and ask you a question, because I had a long career in manufacturing, just like Dolph, and there's 2 issues that we ran into, and quite honestly, I'm asking you the question because we never were able to develop a good solution or a good strategy to this, okay? One is, you have these org charts, these role charts, whatever you want to call them, but some experts, some consultants say, okay, if your person is good in X or interested in X or whatever, let them sort of expand their role, let them get involved in other things that, again, they're very good at, they're very interested in, because they'll do a bang-up job, okay? Quite honestly, I subscribe to the other camp of not letting them do that, and the reason being, you got to be realistic. They're going to be in your organization for a period of time, right? So now if I set out to hire a marketing manager, everybody more or less knows what a marketing manager is. It's a reasonably standard job description. But if my marketing manager does a little bit of HR, a little bit of finance, because they like that, whatever, and now I go to you or a consultant or to anybody and say, hey, I got to hire a marketing manager, but they need to be able to do payroll, they need to be able to do onboarding. They'll say, Sal, good luck, you'll never find that person. So I guess my question is, where do you fall in that sort of dichotomy of letting them play to their strengths versus keeping sort of standardized job titles or standardized boxes in your org chart? And then the other question I'll throw out at you, and completely different, you can answer them both. But this is another one that I never found a good answer for, is a lot of times organizations want to promote from within, okay, because the benefits are obvious, right?
Yeah.
People are motivated, they see a career path, they can grow, they can make more money, you know, blah, 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 blah. I also struggled with that one, quite honestly, the reason being it's hard to take a tech and convert them into an engineer, because there's a reason you went to engineering school for 4 years.
Right.
Right, and so you're either going to end up with a lousy engineer or something's going to happen. But, and same thing sometimes with managers, you know, it's hard to turn a bookkeeper into a CFO. You know, so how do you deal with that? Because I recognize, all, you know, if you're the bookkeeper and all these accounting managers and CFOs keep coming through, at some point you get frustrated and you say, okay, I'm not going anywhere in this organization, I might as well go somewhere else. So, 2 long questions for the price of one. I'll let you kind of dive in.
All right. Yeah, the first one was whether to keep somebody focused or make them more utility. And in my opinion and my experience, I feel like, and the reason why I called my company Focus First, is that they should be focused. I feel like the more focused you are, the better you're going to do at your job. The more you get all these things thrown at you, you're just not going to be able to do all of them great. And comparatively to the future role chart, you know, that kind of ties into the Jim Collins idea of the right people in the right seats. If you really identify what the roles are that you need to be successful now and in the future, then it's much easier to figure out, okay, this person's better in these areas, and I don't want to convolute too much on their plates, or at least not for, you know, a long period of time, maybe a short-term solution, and knowing that we're going to move forward. And then the second question, remind me again real quick.
Yeah, how much do you promote from within?
And yeah.
You know, do you end up putting the wrong people in the wrong levels? Not, yeah.
So and it's not all, you know, I'm not naive to know that it's going to be the same way in every single situation. But if you can start with the right people, I think you're creating a better culture, a better tribe, a long-term culture that if you promote from within and work their way up, as long as they're the right person, they can always be taught. Now, that doesn't mean that person won't always be the tech, right? Sometimes that person may always be the tech, and that's just what they're good at. And different businesses have different needs. But when you're looking for how to grow your business, you're looking for leaders, right? You're looking for people who can rise to the top. You're looking for those A players.
So, like, just a similar question, but it's slightly on a different topic. Like right now, people talk about, you know, org charts versus like Scrum-based methodologies, right? And within the Scrum-based, it seems like, you know, everybody has is a goal-oriented approach within an organization rather than an organizational chart.
Yeah.
And when you try to put Scrum, it means that, you know, the goal is how to get it done as fast as you can move.
Right.
And whereas in organizational chart, you have very specific goals predefined on what needs to happen. And I mean, at the stage where we are, we tend to think in terms of Scrum because that's the goal, let's get it done no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm seeing problems because it's a fairly complicated business to begin with where I am. And when people start to go into one area to the other, they're not able to give the best output which I would like to have. But at the same point, if I decide to put them into organizational type things, hey, you know, you're a technician, you should be just doing this and get this report to me or to this person, and then they are going to do this, and what I'm finding is that it's exceptionally slow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in this particular case, what is your opinion?
Well, yeah, I see where you're going with that. I just always gravitate towards the person understanding exactly what it is they're responsible for, what the metrics are behind that, and that they can perform in the best way. I've kind of toyed with the Scrum-based kind of organization, more of a holistic, like team-based organization, and just never felt like it really ever clicked in anything that I was in. And that whether or not, I don't know that it has to be like that traditional hard and fast, like, yes, I'm in charge of everything, but it's more about the role that you're in and what you're responsible for. And I don't know, do you have any experience with that Scrum-based kind of what you've seen in the past?
I would just say, from having sat on the other side of working in the IT recruitment space, the Agile and Scrum, that's all plays a very big factor, but it depends on how large the team is and how many people you have to distribute among those collaborative environments to get the results you need quicker. So it's in the technology space, it's a lot more difficult because you need to hone on expertise that someone might not be able to offer. But having the functional background of that whole user acceptance testing side and realizing that, okay, there are business or engineering or whatever your application serves, whatever the end user market is, that maybe the technicians are too close to the situation to realize how it may appear on the other side. So I can't really directly answer the question without knowing the makeup of the team and how many people are on there, but it is hard not to promote from internally and to get everybody feeling like they're part of the train moving in the right direction. If someone feels like they're an outsider, then they're more likely to leave if everybody else is on this collective side. So,
and I feel like
one of the points you should really look at is appreciative inquiry blue ocean process with Aldridge, because in reality, as a leader, hiring the right people is great, but you still have to keep people, as you said, on the train. Mm-hmm. And even it doesn't matter if they're technical or if they are a strategic piece of it. As a leader, your job is to say, this is our problem to solve, and then get out of the way. Right. And let them be creative. And there are ways to do that. There are different techniques and methodologies for that process. Especially, I've done a lot in sustainability. In that particular background, like you're talking, it's a new field. So it's not populated by a bunch of, for lack of a better word, guys like me and Dolph, who are old and crusty and have these rigid org charts. It's populated by individuals that want to see a flat organization. They want to know that their opinion or their thoughts contribute to the overall success. So there are techniques out there for you.
Yeah, one of the areas that I feel, and I'm moving to the next point, is what I call the job scorecard, which is basically instead of a job description, it's kind of a combination of description and sort of an operational system where they know exactly what their roles and responsibilities are, and then you also outline what their metrics are, like what's going to make their job a success. That could play a little bit into that if they understand, okay, I'm part of making, part of my job as a manager or a tech or whatever, maybe, measured on these projects and how they come out successfully. And diving into, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but into development, making sure that you are regularly communicating, or your managers are regularly communicating with them, having monthly one-on-ones. So, and you're using this scorecard to essentially see how they're doing, where their performance is, and having real conversations about where the pitfalls are and how to overcome them, whether in a project situation or in a role situation. Some of you may do daily huddles as well. If you have a bigger team or you manage a team, daily huddle is just a 15-minute meeting to keep everyone on track in the Scrum mentality. That's kind of standard, like everyone is on the same page, but it's an idea that can be used outside of that as well, just so just kind of get together quickly, understand what's going on, what are the big three for the day, what's everyone trying to accomplish, what are we trying to accomplish for the week. Just that iterative process of, okay, let's keep the ball rolling, let's keep things moving quickly and fast. You're catching up, you're building rapport. And if you're the owner or the manager, you can let the staff run the meetings too. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be the really rigid sort of org charty kind of structure. So moving ahead, because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, if we could maybe take 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I think I can get through the rest in 5 minutes. Sure. So the monthly one-on-ones, I feel like that's critical. I've always had really good success with that. In the monthly one-on-ones, you're not only talking about their metrics, but you're talking about just anecdotally where things are, getting their feedback on things, understanding how to improve, how are they feeling on the vision of the company, how are they doing on their vision of how their vision ties into all of that. And then what are some action items you can come away with to keep them happy, keep them maintained. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, so obviously avoiding burnouts, employee satisfaction surveys I feel are critical to understand, either doing it through the monthly one-on-ones, or if you have a bigger team, maybe a little more formally understanding, just what is what's the overall feel for the company that you're managing. So the 8-player pyramid, just understanding, so in these one-on-ones, how to measure, the performance of this person, are they an A player? And I really feel like this relates to how are they demonstrating the culture, values, and then, what do their results look like? And you only understand results if you have some way of measuring that, which is what the job scorecard does. So if they're an A player, they're demonstrating both culture and values and high-level results. If they're a B player, then they're probably inconsistent on one. And if they're a C, then they're definitely like kind of in the middle ground on both. And then D, you're starting to falter on one area or the other. If you're consistently seeing C and D, then they may not be the right fit. You may have to consider either trying to get them up a certain way or not. And if they're B, then looking at a plan that gets them up to an A. I don't have time to get into all of that today, but basically that's kind of where you use your monthly one-on-ones. What else did I want to talk about? So an example, just a really simple example, this company I'm working with, we kind of worked through that with one employee who was already on board when I came on board. We evaluated them for a couple months. Unfortunately, they didn't work out. We used all the tools that I was talking about, hired a new person in place, and within 2-3 weeks, they were already outperforming the other person. So it works really well in situations like that. And just wrapping up, I guess, there's obviously plenty of other methods out there. There's lots of different ways. There's lots of different situations. But in my opinion, putting these systems in place in the right order helps you get the right people in the right seats, as long as you're using the right systems, and you can be successful at it. Most owners do this on their own. Eventually they will figure it out. I did, it took me a while, but I figured it out. But having a step-by-step plan in place is critical to eliminate a lot of the stress, which is one of the things that I help people with. And really that's about it. Just a quick plug before I conclude. I do this with companies. We work on systems. We work in team management. We build out the mindset, strategy, and the systems because we believe scaling is a mindset first and foremost. Most people are doing it wrong. Most people are moving way too fast or have moved way too fast and never took the time to really put those foundations in place. And so, we work with them on a 90-day program to get all these things sort of rolling, and sometimes they take 90 days, sometimes they take a little longer. But this company we're working with today is already on track to break through 7 figures after only being in business for 3 years, have you do it on its own. So thank you. It's been an honor to present, and any more questions we want to talk about? Or
I just have a question on Asana, because I just got a
Sure.
solicitation email today from them.
Oh, yeah?
Is it a training tool? Is it a software?
Task management.
Oh, task management, okay.
So you can use that to put your systems in place, or you can use it for your daily tasks, process